Welcome to Frame Marketing Gurus. I am Demand Gen, CEO of Virago Marketing, and today I've got Holly LaBoda, founder of Luminaries Consulting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. So I like to kick off with an icebreaker before we jump in. So the question you chose was, what is the craziest thing on your bucket list?
Oh, yes. So you just pointed out the notes to me because I couldn't remember what I picked before. But it was funny. I was kind of laughing when I was looking at that because, of course, I don't think anything on my bucket list is crazy. I think it's all very reasonable things to want to achieve. Yeah. But I was like, which one would other people think was the craziest? So I think the one that I was thinking when I picked that is it is on my bucket list to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And I don't know why in particular that one, but it's just been one that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And I think it's in such a cool area. I think it's one of the higher mountains that you can climb without true technical climbing ability. Like I don't have crampons and I'm not going to go over like ice bridges and stuff like that, but like it's challenging enough. Plus you have like a travel and a cultural component built in, which I love. So that's what I.
So are you a regular hiker? Do you mountain climb? Are you scaling rocks?
No.
I
have climbed a couple of mountains, but it's not like an active hobby or anything like that. But.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I don't think I'm gonna join you on that one. I do think that was a little crazy. I'm like, that one's probably not for me. I think I would probably take 50 feet up and I'd be like, ooh.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. And that's part of the reason I haven't done it, because I want to like do it with somebody and everybody's like, pass.
I can't find somebody to do it with. It's gonna be a hard pass, Holly.
Yeah. That's okay.
Let's do something else. Let's go get a glass of wine.
Right. My girlfriends are like, spa? Can we just go to a spa?
Yes. I like that idea. I like your girlfriends already. So tell us more about you and your role at Luminaries Consulting.
Yeah. So I am the co-founder and partner there. Myself and my partner, Sarah Black, run Luminaries Consulting. And we are a sales consulting company who specializes in kind of commercial growth in the logistics space primarily. So helping our clients keep and grow their ideal customers or scale to meet whatever growth goals they might have.
Okay, cool. And so we had talked like, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks ago now. And I was like, hey, will you come on the podcast? And you're like, I'm totally in sales. And I was like, I know we target like the marketing audience, but it's so important for marketing and sales to get along. So I was like, I want to pick your brain and learn more about marketing and sales alignment, how they could be more supportive of one another, kind of when should marketing step in versus when is it sales roles? Because you always have the marketing and sales teams pointing their fingers at each other. You're sending me bad leads. You're not following up on my leads. And it's like, at the end of the day, there's no ROI on anything marketing if sales can't close. And if marketing's not supporting sales, then, sales is kind of going to go, lack of better words, rogue, and get their own leads and work on closing their own leads versus align with marketing. So I do think it's like such a pain point for marketers. So I want to dive into that. So why do you think, what is the most common reasons for the disconnect between marketing and sales that you see?
Well, I think I think most of the time everybody has really great intentions, right? Everybody thinks that they want to hit their goals. They want to do their job on behalf of their company. They want to see their company grow. A lot of times marketers and salespeople are very different people and they approach things very differently. They understand things very differently. And sometimes, I won't like overgeneralize this, but sometimes they tend to think like that their job might be a little bit harder, a little bit less understood, a little bit more challenging than the other ones. So I think some of those dynamics contribute to that disconnect. But where I see it being so powerful is when especially the leaders understand that like everybody's job here is to drive the commercial growth of the company, to bring new revenue, to drive customer value, to bring business into our organization and achieve the top line goals. So when you can align on that, that is a strong first start. I think
Yeah.
when especially the leaders are disconnected on that in the beginning, like the teams almost have no chance. You have to have to start with. You have to have kind of that shared vision and understanding. You have to respect everybody's contributions to that shared vision. And then you might have some hiccups along the way, but you're probably getting pretty far if you have that to start with.
Yeah, so I know quite a few companies have like a marketing and sales VP. Like they're actually overseeing both now. But what I'm kind of hearing is there's still this distrust because marketing's controlling the budget and salespeople want to do this. And I'm like, my advice is that that person over the marketing and salesperson, like the VP, needs to like mellow that out to send the communication down, right? Because the salesperson's going and saying, I want to go to this show, and marketing saying, I don't have the budget for that. And I think ultimately, like somebody up here needs to say, hey, you need to present the value of this. You need to understand the cost of this and what the value is. And then you can make your case. Then I can make my case or communicate to marketing, this is something we're going to do versus
Right.
give me money. I don't have none.
Yeah.
And then they're like splitting hairs on what shows they're going to go to. And, at the end of the day, marketing's like, I need to report on the value, the ROI. If we're putting $20,000 into the show, I need you to go get leads or move leads on and stuff like that. And sometimes it's perceived sales wants to go and have a good time. And so again, back to kind of pointing the fingers and stuff, but do you think that having one person over marketing and sales and kind of facilitating those communications is necessary?
I don't know if I would say it's necessary. I will say that it is a way to potentially achieve alignment. And like the goal is alignment towards common goals and common processes to get there. And I think that putting a leader over those functions is potentially an alignment strategy. I don't think it always leads to alignment, but people are like, hey, if we got disconnect, let's make one person in charge. Yes, that might create some alignment. You could also get alignment without that, or you can have that and still be incredibly misaligned. If you can have alignment on what you're trying to achieve and the path to get there with or without one person overseeing the whole thing, I think that's the real goal, is that alignment.
So what do you think is the best strategy for alignment between marketing and sales?
I think that there are some foundational things that like the commercial growth arm, whatever that is, under the chief commercial officer, under a VP of marketing and sales, under multiple different leaders, whatever, that needs to have. You need to have your organizational strategy, and then you need to have your go-to-market or your commercial strategy and connections there. And then once you have that, then you can figure out some like core fundamental things underneath that. Clarity on your ideal customer, clarity on your value propositions, clarity on the sales process and who's responsible for what elements of it. And if you can create some like process alignment underneath that, then the rest is a lot easier.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So what do you think sales wants from the marketing team?
I think sales wants the marketing team to warm up the universe of prospects. So if we can get like salespeople, probably a lot of salespeople think that like, oh, I can do my job without marketing. And for sure you can. There are organizations that don't have marketing. Yes, but it's way harder. Yeah. So if you can get somebody to help you warm up your network, the universe, creating a stronger brand that people might recognize, that makes your job easier, because they don't care who Holly LaBoda is calling, but they recognize the name of my company because my brand is out there.
Right.
You can get them to kind of warm up that universe to the value of your organization, the value of your services. That makes every entrance strategy so much easier.
Yeah. So it's interesting you say that, because I believe brand and demand generation fall under marketing and lead generation to an extent. But I've seen, and I've also managed BDRs under marketing for lead generation because of that qualification and handoff between marketing and sales. I've always called them my cornerstone, and I've loved them because that person is responsible for the feedback that marketing needs on like the quality of the lead. Is this a good lead? Did you follow up on them? You know, what
Yeah.
are their objections? Did you hand them over? Because now we've got like this SAL, we've got this like sales accepted lead. So when it goes over to a sales rep or sales manager and they're doing outreach, they're really working to drive the conversation and close the lead versus do initial discovery and make sure that they're talking to the right person or there's an interest there or anything like that. So
Right.
I love having the cornerstone, but I also think it's also like, where is the line between marketing and sales? Because if you've got that and you're pursuing it all the way through sales accepted under the marketing umbrella, and you're obviously taking on lead generation because your BDR is also doing cold calling, like, and I know you can have different setups and strategies, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very gray area between marketing and sales.
It is. It is. And I think as long as there's like some of that gray, I think can be really good, because it shouldn't be, if there's too much black and white, that I feel like often implies a disconnect. Like there might be this chasm between where your work stops and my work starts. And if that's kind of like gray and more fluid, it might be more connected. So usually I think that would be a good sign.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that all is like, yes, we're all aimed at the same goal. We all have different parts of the process. As long as we're not overlapping each other too much, like we're not doing each other's work, that's great.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's the funnel, right? So it's like
Yeah.
marketing, sales.
Mhm. Yep. And then it should come back. That's
Yeah.
the part that needs to be aligned too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always thought it's easier to make a customer than a lead a customer. So it's like having the conversations with sales and talking about cross-sell and upsell opportunities and putting them in nurturing flows or drip campaigns or anything to kind of get them to think about some other services or solutions you might offer.
Yeah.
And then providing sales with content to have those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that should be very valuable to sales or account management teams. You can figure out, because that's a tricky balance for a lot of people. Like it's hard for account managers or people who manage current customers to sometimes focus on those growth elements, because they're very focused on execution, delivering on what they've already sold or what they've already committed to. So if marketing can help take some of that like prompting for those growth conversations and putting those ideas in the customer's heads, that helps the salespeople not just have to come into that stuff cold, or the account managers in this case.
Right. The whole goal is to get them to be inbound lanes, raise their hands. I'm interested in this. And so if marketing can do that, they're doing their job, and then sales comes in and closes it out.
Right. Absolutely. And there's definitely parts of that salespeople own, right? The business review process, when you're kind of coming up with those different potential ideas for growth, that is something that the account managers or the salespeople need to drive. But the marketing folks can definitely contribute to some of those things. And like throughout the rest of the year, when you're not having those business review conversations, driving some interest to some of those upsell and cross-sell opportunities, super valuable.
Yeah. So let's talk about prospecting for a second. So
Yeah.
when it comes to identifying and nurturing prospects, what strategies have you found most effective in ensuring they transition smoothly into loyal customers?
Well, I think it depends on who your customers are, what you're selling, what your sales cycle or approach looks like. But in general, my rule of thumb is to use whatever is the most direct approach between you and your customer. So that's going to be different for every person, but everybody wants to do like emails or social or something like that. And sometimes those are the most direct approach. A lot of times they're not. So there might be other ways that are faster to get right in front of your people, that are more ingrained in the things that you're doing every day, picking up the phone, the right trade shows, that kind of thing. But in general, like choose the way that is the easiest, most direct path to your customer. And we also recommend having multiple different kind of approaches built into your entrance strategy, because you can assume like which way might make the most sense for your customer, but everybody has different communication preferences, different kind of things that are going on in their world. So trying multiple strategies that are more direct is usually a good way to go.
Cool. What about marketing and sales and like miscommunication and like working within silos? How can we bring them together?
Oh man, if I had the silver bullet to that question, that would be
Everybody
some
wants to know, how do we tear down the silos?
right, right. I mean, I think what we started with talking about, that alignment and kind of core principles that you're kind of connected on, goes a long way. And beyond that, there's, team dynamics, there's trust, there's good communication. All of that stuff will help address that too. But if you can start with some good core alignment, good strong processes, and good communication skills and kind of trust, I feel like you're on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually really enjoyed most of my relationships with salespeople because I think it's like sitting down and having a conversation and saying, what are you trying to accomplish? And typically it'll be like, I need to have a $1.3 million pipeline closed this year or something like that, right?
Mhm.
It's like, okay, well, now let's create the plan for achieving this. And so one thing that we do is we're like, okay, what are the business objectives? What are the sales objectives? Okay, now what are the marketing objectives to support those, to achieve those sales
Yeah.
objectives? And it's always different. And it doesn't matter if companies are competitors or not, like they're always in different places with different messages and like different objectives.
Mhm.
So it really just depends on the trajectory of the company, what they're trying to accomplish, and then like working with sales to say, okay, we've got to do hardcore lead gen, or you know what, we have no brand. We've got to work on our branding. Many times with startups, it's like very grassroots. We're working with shoestring budgets and we need to leverage relationships. So, I mean, just aligning on what you can actually accomplish and having transparency both in budget and objectives and like
Mhm.
alignment on those objectives. Company is not successful unless marketing and sales is collaborating.
Yep. Yep. I think so too. And I think that that I love the kind of personal wins that you're finding with your salespeople when you're talking about that. Like, what are you trying to achieve? Great. How can I help you achieve that? Here's some ideas. I mean, that will go a long way to getting the buy-in that you need from salespeople. Like that marketing is adding direct value to my business. Then you're winning. The other thing that I often recommend to marketing people, some people will reach out to me and be like, oh, how can I get sales to like trust what I'm saying? How can I get some credibility within the sales team? And usually my other advice beyond what you just said there is get some FaceTime with your customers. I think that like marketing has a really good understanding. Usually the best marketers that I know have a really good understanding of the market in general and like customer profiles and all of that kind of stuff. But the direct customer conversation, being a part of discovery calls, being a part of business reviews, being a part of solution proposals and kind of hearing directly from the customers what they're telling the salespeople, that's invaluable. And that will go a long way, like in salesperson credibility to say like, oh yes, like when people are selling this, I hear them have this objection. How can I best get in front of that for you?
Yeah.
Give you some tools to help work around that. That's valuable to the salesperson and incredibly like boosts the credibility of that marketer.
And that's how you tear down the silos. You kind of
Mhm.
invite the other into your world. So you had talked about like customer profiles and stuff. Don't do those from a marketing perspective and exclude sales from the conversation.
Right.
They're the ones talking to these people. Get their input. If you have their buy-in, you're more likely to have more alignment in terms of we are doing the right things from a marketing perspective. We're supporting sales. They like what we're doing. They're getting good quality leads. That's how you like keep the gears in motion, right?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and then marketing, go on the sales calls, listen in, go on a customer meeting, go to
Mhm.
a QBR, do like step into their world and see what it's like.
Right.
Create RFPs with them.
Yep. Yep.
What
And
a
those
team.
can feel intimidating if it's not a role that you play in all the time. But with, again, most good marketers that I know, you have such an understanding of the customers, the marketplace, the things the customers value, you can contribute to that conversation.
Yeah,
But even just starting with kind of just being there to observe, take notes, like play a role like that. But you would be surprised at how much you can actually add value to.
right. So what about data and analytics in this relationship? Like what KPIs like, are there KPIs for marketing and KPIs for sales, or are they shared, or what do you think? Like, what data and analytics is important to the marketing and sales conversation?
Yeah. I mean, I think there should be some shared kind of goals that you're looking for and KPIs to track against those things. So if you think about cascading it, like here's what we're trying to achieve from a commercial growth standpoint. Maybe it's revenue, maybe it's just top line, maybe you're looking at bottom line too. Maybe it's margin that's a driver for you right now, or number of new customers, or wallet share. Like start with those things at the top, and then you can figure out what pieces of that are owned by different teams, or how that cascades to an individual. And then people still understand how it rolls up to the whole. So marketing is watching these things because margin is so important to us as an organization, for example. So then they're not fighting about what's valuable. It all rolls up to the top.
Yeah. So we talked about how marketing could be more supportive of sales. How can sales be more supportive of marketing?
I think in general, appreciating the fact that they warm up your universe, and that's really valuable, would be a good first step for sure. I think there are so many things that that great marketing teams do that add value to sales organizations. And if you want to realize that, join a sales organization that doesn't have marketing, and you will really quickly come to appreciate it. But I think that there are like, that part is kind of truly understanding everything that marketing is offering and how to ingrain that into your business a little bit better, would be something that would add value to salespeople and help them appreciate that more.
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of talk about some of this stuff like it's a very linear path. Like marketing, you just be nice to sales, and sales, you be nice to marketing, and we're going to align and we're going to build this thing together and we're going to march forward. But I think the fact is, like, we live in a super not live, I guess we work in this industry in a very like ever-changing, evolving, complex. Like, how do you think you keep it together when everything is constantly changing around us? Like, I mean, the shift between the carriers and the shippers and who's got capacity and like all this, it's very tumultuous, like it's ever changing. And the landscape, it's new competitors popping up all the time. Like, how do you think marketing and sales comes together as a team versus the world?
Right. Well, and that's what it should be. And that's why I think that alignment at the top is like, let's say like, this is what we're trying to do as a team. Let's rally around that. That can be so inspiring and kind of build that connection between the groups. But then I think it is tough. Like we work in a very dynamic industry. And that can be overwhelming. It can be challenging. But I think if you've kind of focused on what those core things are, what do we do really well? What do our customers want? How do we add value to them? Those things are more stable than the shifting kind of marketplace dynamics and that kind of thing. So if you can stay focused on those things, how you add value to your customers might change kind of based on what's going on in the market, how available carriers are, how much power the shippers have, like all of that kind of stuff. But the kinds of value that you add are probably pretty consistent. So if you continue to kind of focus on those things, it might take some of the noise and pressure away.
Yeah. So you were talking about trust. Like we keep talking about trusting marketing, trusting sales. How do you think they build trust?
Trust is such a tricky little thing. It's tough to build. It's really easy to lose. We work a lot with sales teams who are trying to build trust with their customers, but trust is trust. People are people. It's all built in the same way. So I think there's a couple of different models that we use, but like the one which I'm going to be like, I'm going to try to come up with the like equation off the top of my head. I'm not going to get there, but like credibility and those kind of elements are just common to any trusting relationship. So if you can break those apart and start to try to build those with people, whether it's your customer or your teammate or anyone else, I think that's really, really powerful and goes a long way. I think that's something that people learn throughout their career, either intentionally or through like the school of hard knocks, is that you can only do so much on your own. And if you create this like solid, trusting network around you, you can achieve so much more. So why wouldn't a salesperson have a trusted marketer that can help them do their jobs better? Why wouldn't they build trusting relationships with their customers so they're easier to add value to when you work with them? Why wouldn't you invest in that kind of thing? Most salespeople that I know would say that they spend probably as much time kind of selling internally as they do externally. And that's because like most of their work requires more people in the organization to get on board with a big deal that they have, to get on board with this big prospect that they think is important. So creating that trust, like just like you would do with a prospect, is super important to however you're selling.
So customer centric, right? You were talking about you work with sales teams that are trying to build trust with their customers, but how do marketing and sales work together to put the customer at the center and build strategies together? Do you have any examples of successful collaboration that resulted in better customer outcomes?
Yeah, a couple of different ones come to mind, but there was an organization that I worked with on kind of like a go-to-market strategy transformation, and it was really important to have multiple different perspectives as a part of that. Salespeople, marketers, account managers, leaders, like functional leaders, like different parts of the operation that are a part of that, and their customers' perspectives. So in that one, for example, we had all these different people kind of pair up and actually go and talk to their customers about where they're adding the most value, what parts of their relationship they really enjoy, what parts are really sticky, and that kind of thing. So you can do things like that and like collaborate on the voice of customer. That will bring some things together. And then I know there's all kinds of activities that probably you do really well, like the voice of customer surveys, the like journey mapping, the customer journey mapping, and that kind of thing, where you can figure out what parts are tripping people up. All of that work kind of can really contribute to how creating that understanding of how we all work together to add value to customers and making it easier for everybody to do that.
Yeah. So we were talking about building trust, but and how it's hard to build and very easy to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And many times in many organizations, the trust is already broken. So, and it's like, it's not intentional. It's just like, I don't like what they're doing, or they brought me this lead and for whatever reason, I didn't like it, whatever. Right. And like, once it gets tumultuous, it's harder to bring it back together. So what do you think is the first step to get marketing and sales alignment back on track?
Yeah.
I feel somebody got to be a bigger person.
Yeah, it's tough. Like the trust when it's broken like that is hard to bring back together. One of the ways when we're coaching leadership teams, sometimes we'll do like 360s or something like that to kind of gauge current state. But one of the things that we always talk about when we're doing that is what you're trying to do is you're trying to change somebody's perception. Doesn't matter what your intent was, doesn't matter what you're actually doing from a behavioral standpoint. You, Jen, are going to process everything that I do from the lens of your own perception. So when you're trying to do some things differently, like say you had a perception of me like, oh, Holly's always late to things. Maybe I would be on time 300 times over the next year because I'm really trying to learn how to be on time. But that 301st time when I'm late, you would say, there's Holly, always late again. I say that because perception is super hard to change, and it doesn't necessarily connect with reality, like the behaviors that actually happen or your intentions. So that's part of the reason that it's really, really hard to change that like perception of mistrust, the perception that you have intentions that are different than mine or something like that, because like they're just pervasive and they're there and they're kind of in your brain. So I say that all to say that once you're in that situation, it's hard, and just acknowledging that can be a really good first step. Like here's the situation that we're in. We're having some dynamics and some challenges. We're kind of working on different teams, and we need to do that differently. And having kind of everybody else kind of weigh in on the desire for that to be different can be a really good first step.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to throw a scenario at you, something I've heard. So 3PL has an established sales team, has not had a marketing leader for 5 years.
Okay.
Marketing leader comes in, sales team's been doing their thing, working their process, like for 5 years now without any marketing. So marketing person comes in and it's pretty much like, I don't need you. What do you think this marketer should do to get alignment? Because I'll tell you, even now, year or two in, she's still trying to get them to see the value of marketing, to
Yeah.
follow up on her leads, because they've just been doing their own thing for 5 years. They're
Right.
like, this works for me. It's kind of like technology adopters, right? Like I'm not going to use this because I'm using my spreadsheet and that works for me. Like, why am I going to kind of change my ways and take on more work or follow up on your leads that I don't know what would be your advice to a marketer that's trying to infiltrate and partner with the sales team, but is kind of getting pushed back?
Yeah. Well, I would answer that maybe in two ways. And I'll start with one of them is like, really what we're talking about here is change and how to manage change. And people, humans that make up most organizations, don't love change. So they're working with something, they're working in a system that works for them. Whether they're getting the results they want is another question, but it works for them right now. So you have to make it obvious that it's not working for them, is kind of the first point. And the change management tactic there would be like create a burning platform, like help them see that like doing what they have been doing is not ideal. So if that's like, you're setting this other goal as an organization, or kind of the story you were sharing earlier about like finding the individual wins for the sales team, hearing from the customer, things that could be happening better. All of that would kind of create a really good perspective of current state and open potentially people's eyes to the fact that like there's a better way and we can create that strategy together.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I feel for her.
Yeah, it's really hard. And especially like this sales versus marketing dynamic is like, I get all of it. It can be very frustrating, especially I think it's felt more on the marketing side. I always tell my friends at TMSA, I'm on the board there, and the conversation that we have a lot is like sales and marketing, like alignment is kind of a topic that would benefit both sides of the organization. So let's talk about that a lot. And I tell them as like the sales voice, I was like, yes, in theory, like that topic appeals to both sides of the organization. Right or wrong, only marketing cares about that.
I get that. Sales is like, I can sell without you.
Right. So you got to make them care. And the only way to make them care is to say like, this will make your job easier. It'll add more value to your customers, or it'll get you better results. And if it can do one of those things or all of those things, like they would be really silly if they said no to it.
Right. And it seems so straightforward and easy, like, oh, just be friends and get along and support one another. But I feel like more often than not, talking to marketers, there's pushback from sales. Mm-hmm. And so marketing cares. I care because I'm not a closer. So all the, budgets that I own and I, doing these different campaigns and stuff, they have costs associated to them. Yeah. And leadership always wants to know, what was the ROI based on what you did? And I'm not going to pick up the phone and work through a long sales cycle to close a deal. I need my salesperson. And if my salesperson isn't going to do it, I'm not going to attribute any money to that campaign, and they're going to take my budget away. Right. So I think that's why marketing cares. Like marketing wants to be successful, and we're really big on, the KPIs and the metrics. And sales is, many times they come with books, they make phone calls, they talk about the solution, and they're like, we don't need marketing. I'll just do this on my own. And because out of necessity, if they were with a company that didn't have marketing, they had to.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they haven't experienced how good it can be when it works really well.
Right.
So
maybe they don't have the visibility
that vision for the future too.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of tools out there to make it easier, like Salesforce and HubSpot,
Mhm.
creating that visibility, understanding attribution, and being able to show how it's moving through the pipeline and going to close and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's tremendous value in alignment. And yes, us marketing folks want it. So
Right.
we're
Well,
dragging the
so
sales
like,
along.
well, it's the profit center versus cost center kind of thing. Like
Yeah,
sales is really hard because your results are so visible, but it's also like part of that is easy because your results are so visible. Like nobody can guess whether you're adding, nobody questions whether you're adding value to the business or not. It's black and white. It's right there in the numbers.
yeah,
Marketing like needs to create some of that visibility because you're doing so many things that add value to the business. But if you're not a marketer, you don't know what numbers to look at. So I think that's
right.
why the cost center side of marketing, like I've been in a lot of cost center roles, like you have to create that visibility. So it's just different lenses that you're coming at it with.
Yeah, 100%. No, 100%. That's right. So the last question I like to ask my guests is for you to spill some like some insights, secret sauce per se.
Yeah.
Like what is something that you know that you don't think other people know, whether it's a tool, a tip, something that'll help you get further in life?
Gosh, I don't know if I feel like there's like 100 answers I could come up with, and that's a really hard one for me to just say, this is the one tip. Um, man, you
Maybe
know,
like a lesson learned,
mhm.
something magic words.
Gosh. Okay, here's one.
Okay.
That I think whether people realize it or not, the most useful skill in about any role, and the one like skill that's shared across like every job I've ever been in or worked with, is influence. And influence is something that a lot of people don't think they're good at. A lot of people think it's like a selling skill. They think it's like manipulation, something like that. But I think the best way to influence anyone is to lead with questions and ask really powerful questions and kind of it's a sales skill. That's what we do in discovery. We use questions to unearth opportunities and create visibility to some gains that we might have or some areas that are less than ideal. So if anyone in any role wants to be more effective at influencing others, get better at asking questions. And if you can think about how to understand kind of some of the things that are going on, some of the reasons that something is the way it is, you can get them to say with their own words what the opportunity is versus trying to convince them. And that's what I think a lot of people don't want to influence because they're like, I'm just trying to like convince you, manipulate you, sell you on something. If you're asking questions, if you're approaching it from a lens of genuine curiosity and the desire to do what's right, you will be a much better influencer than you think.
I love that. That's good advice. That's really good. I like that. I sometimes struggle with the questions because you think about the words or you
Mm,
stumble on your words or you're like you think you're going to say this question and it comes out a different way.
right?
So yeah, maybe just I don't know, rehearsing asking questions. Is it like should you have like a base of normal questions that you ask?
I think you can, especially as you're starting, you can get a couple of go-tos. But I think in general, if you try to truly understand the other person, if that's your goal, not try to convince them of something, not to try to achieve a certain outcome, if you're truly trying to understand why they think the way they think or what is going on, like approach it with genuine curiosity, authentic curiosity, you'll come up with the questions. You
Yeah.
can you can say something and be like, "Oh, Jennie, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Why do you think that way?" Like something like that, where if it comes across as
Maybe
not offensive, but
right.
like truly curious, they'll keep saying things. You don't have to say very much, and you can lead them in a certain direction just based on the true answers.
And maybe that's the answer to the marketing and sales alignment question.
Mhm.
Have a conversation, ask questions, seek to understand. Why do you think this?
Yep. I'll tell you that almost never hurts to have a conversation and ask a question.
No. I think there should be more conversations between
Yeah.
marketing and sales. And this was a really great conversation about that. So thank you so much for coming on here. Could you tell us where people could connect with you or ask questions if they wanted to?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me, Holly LaBoda, there. And our website, Luminaries Consulting, both of those, you can reach out to me. You can schedule meetings. I'm always happy to talk with smart individuals like yourselves and have genuinely interesting conversations and give some free advice and help people kind of achieve their goals. That's what I want to do.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Holly.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jen.